With that, I would like to introduce Colonel Alan West. He's my colonel. I'm in the State Guard, so I can say he's a full bird colonel to me. So, Colonel West, thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, right next to, not far from where I grew up, was a little town called Decatur, Georgia. So now I get to have Decatur, Georgia, Decatur, Texas in my kit bag. And a lot of you have come up to me and talked about how you prayed for me after that accident I had over Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, because I'm a walking miracle. It's only by God's grace that I am standing alive today. So thank you for your prayers. A couple of folks that I served. Where's Lieutenant Colonel Cunningham? Where'd you run off to, sir? Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Cunningham, what he didn't tell you is that he and I served together in that airborne unit over in Vicenza, Italy, back 1984 to 1987. Yeah, we're just that old, okay? And then another person that is here is Sergeant First Class retired Rodney Dean Taylor. He and I served together, 4th Infantry Division in the 2nd Battalion, 20th Field Artillery Regiment. We were in Iraq in 2003 together. Okay, do I take questions? Do I have we able to take questions? Okay, I want to talk for maybe about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to open up to the floor for questions, because I'm sure you guys got a lot of things on your mind. But first and foremost, let me tell you something. I don't want to hear that you're depressed. I don't want to hear that you're despondent, that you're dejected, that you're down, you're downtrodden. I don't want to hear any D words, Pastor, because the D words come from the D man. That's D devil. Okay? I want you to be engaged. I want you to be fired up. I want you to be enthused. Just the same as I used to tell the soldiers in the Deep Strike Battalion over in Iraq. You either get to fighting or you get to dying. That's what's going to happen every single day. So you got to make a choice. And Andy was so right. We as Republicans are on the side of the right. We play checkers. The other side is very good with chess. The other side is strategically thinking all the time. Let me give you a case in point. If you have been paying attention to last year in April the 14th of 2020, and you can still go back and Google up this article, and I mentioned it today in my Chairman's Monday message. But Eric Holder, who is the chairman of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, wrote an article in Time magazine, said how coronavirus will permanently change elections in the United States of America. April the 14th of last year. And if you read that article, he laid out exactly what they were going to do. And it was called universal mail-in ballots. And they did. As a matter of fact, even before that, in March of last year, Nancy Pelosi was talking about the stimulus money for the COVID-19, and a bunch of the stimulus money was supposed to go to what? Universal mail-in ballots. And what really happened, I mean, November to 2020 is not so much about Dominion voting systems and machines. What happened in November 2020, Republican state legislatures got punked. They did. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona. They sat back and they looked at all of those battleground states and they said, we know that if we go in and do this, they won't say anything about it. They won't do anything about it. Stacey Abrams. Stacey said, why in the you-know-what was anybody in the state of Georgia caring about what Stacey Abrams said? But yes, she forced the Secretary of State in the state of Georgia to go into a consent decree to say that you don't have to have signature verification on mail-in ballots. Now, you know what's so funny about that? A month and a half prior to that, the United States Supreme Court had just ruled against the South Dakota Democrat Party, saying that you must have signature verification on universal mail-in ballots. What happened in Pennsylvania? What happened in Michigan? All these other places. State legislatures, Republican state legislatures allowed Democrat courts, allowed Democrat secretaries of state, allowed Democrat governors to go in and change election law. Some of them days before the election itself. Now, the last thing I remember was Schoolhouse Rock. Y'all remember Schoolhouse Rock? The people that are responsible for making law, amending law, changing law, it's the legislative branch. Not courts, not executives, but the legislative branch. See, the whole crux of what has to happen from this moment going forward is that Republican state legislatures have got to find, excuse me, ladies, testicular fortitude. If they don't do that, the Democrats are going to steamroll them again. Okay? Now, how many people here know, and see, you know, one of the things, remember, I'm on 3x5 cards. Everybody that knew me, remember 3x5 cards? That's what they teach you. How many of y'all carry 3x5 cards? I'm telling you, you need to start carrying 3x5 cards. Okay? No, that ain't that. I'm old school, okay? You forgot the words to the Star Spangled Banner. Hang on, that's all it takes. You wouldn't be singing again if you remember me. But you need to have 3x5 cards. You need to be able to refer to things. And this is why everywhere I go, I carry my 3x5 cards. The very first thing are the 8 legislative priorities for the Republican Party of Texas. The legislative priorities that came from your delegates to the state convention. 8 of them. Election integrity, religious liberty, monument protection, constitutional carry, ending the murder of unborn children, ending child gender modification and mutilation, school choice, taxpayer-funded lobbying, and executive overreach. That's it. But you know what is the most important out of those 9 that I just listed? Election integrity. Why is election integrity so important? And I'll give you an example. The Democrats know one single thing. History shows them that the midterm election, their first midterm election for Bill Clinton, first midterm election for Barack Obama, was a massacre. In 1994, Bill Clinton lost something, I believe, about 54 House seats. Remember, Newt Gingrich's contract with America. Barack Obama, 10 years ago, in 2010, lost 63 congressional seats, the largest shift post the Depression. I was a member of that class that came into Congress 10 years ago. See, they understand one single thing. We've got one shot to make sure that we have one-party control of elections in the United States of America from henceforth now going on. Because everybody understands they have gone too far to the left. So what are they planning to do, Andy? It's called H.R. 1. How many people here read H.R. 1? Every single person in here, Wise County Conservatives, Parker County Conservatives, if you don't understand what H.R. 1 is, you better figure it out real quick. This is the nationalizing of elections in the United States of America. That's why, and they foolishly call it the People's Choice Act. You know, these guys are really, oxymoronic with some of these titles. But this is what H.R. 1 does. Number 1, universal mail-in ballots nationwide. Number 2, online voter registration. Number 3, same-day registration, same-day voting. Number 4, no review of voter registration rolls anywhere in the United States of America. The next thing, no picture ID for voting in the United States of America. And then the last thing that's so important, an independent commission that does redistricting. Now, you know why they want an independent commission to do redistricting? Eric Holder, Barack Obama, Michael Bloomberg dumped $30 million in the state of Texas to flip the Texas State House. They get it because you guys came out in droves and said, no, you can't have it. We got an 83 to 67 majority in Texas State House. Across the United States of America, Republicans control 67 of the 99 state legislatures that are out there. Now, some of y'all saying, okay, Colonel, you got that Common Core math going on. There are 50 states, there's a House and there's a Senate in each one, so it should be 100. Not so fast, my friends. Nebraska has a unicameral system. Nebraska does not have a state Senate and a state House, just one body. So we control 67 of 99 state legislatures all across the United States of America. But see, this is the thing. If the men and women that we send down to Austin, if the men and women that we have as Republican state legislatures all across the United States of America don't have election integrity is the very first thing. Don't make sure that they strengthen our election laws and make sure that there are crimes and penalties assessed, like Chris Hollins down in Harris County, who tried to mail out 2.5 to 2.7 million ballots in Harris County. Can you imagine what would have happened if they had gotten those out? Or you heard about curbside voting in Harris County? Yeah, you can just have like a drive-through, like you come up to McDonald's or something like that. But see, even over in Dallas County, where I live, Clay Jenkins, the county judge there, said, if you have a fear of catching COVID-19, you can call that a disability and you will get a mail-in ballot. This is what is going on, and this is why our men and women in Austin, they got to stand up. Our men and women all across the United States of America, Republican state legislatures, they've got to stand up. Election integrity is the number one thing that we have to strengthen all across red states and Republican states. If we don't understand what the 10th Amendment says, that the powers that are not enumerated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. When Joe Biden comes out and signs an executive order, says that your taxpayer dollars are going to go overseas to fund abortions, our states should say, nope. When you think about it, you live in New Mexico right now. New Mexico went for Joe Biden by 10 percentage points. And Joe Biden just said basically that, well, you know, about 60% of your land, you're not going to be able to do any drilling or anything on it. That's 40% of their economy. New Mexico needs to say nope. Every single oil and gas producing state that has a portion of the Keystone XL pipeline should come out and say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, you don't get to enact your ideological agenda by executive order. We have representatives. You're supposed to go through the representatives to vote on these things. But if we don't stand up and say no, and hats off to our Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Yeah. He stood up and took them on that moratorium on deportation. But everyone should be doing this. You cannot enact an ideological agenda by executive order, but if you don't have courageous, strong, principled people in your state legislature, they're going to get steamrolled. Democrats believe in one single thing. Republicans are too weak to fight back. That's what they bank on. It's kind of like a bully. You know, I grew up in the inner city. And the only way you get a bully to stop bullying, you got to punch him in the nose.
That's right. That's right.
Okay? Yeah, okay, hold on. All right. Colonel West came out to Wise County. He was inciting people to violence. Oh, no. They're going to make me do the perk walk. I was metaphorically speaking, please. Now, this is how stupid it's gotten out there. But you know something? This is where Republicans don't understand how to fight back. How many people here know about Representative Cori Bush from Missouri? Representative Cori Bush from Missouri is a Black Lives Matter activist that led the mob, not once, but twice, against the home of Mark and Patty McCloskey. The mob that called for raping her, killing him, and burning down their house. She's now a member of the United States House of Representatives. So where are the Republicans standing up and saying, hey, here's a person that did incite violence. Here's a person that did lead a mob. You know, you people, what does it say in the Bible? Instead of worrying about the speck that's in my eye, you need to get the plank out of your own eye. Okay? But we need to have the courage to be able to stand up and do that. And let me tell you something, folks. As long as you allow me to be the chairman of this Republican Party of Texas, we're going to fight.
That's right.
And some people don't like that. But there's too much at stake when you look at your children and grandchildren. Now tonight, the governor is delivering his State of the State address. I'm sorry you guys got me instead of Governor Abbott. But tonight, Governor Abbott is going to deliver his legislative priorities for the 87th legislative session. What you need to do is go home tonight and either review that speech, get the transcript, or understand what he said his priorities are. Because if his priorities don't align with the 8 priorities that you all said were important, then you need to get on the phone and call your state representatives, call your state senators, and say, you've got to get on board with what we are asking to be passed.
We the people.
It's right. It is we the people. Because there's too much at stake. The entire country is looking to Texas.
That's right. You got it.
And if Texas does not stand, as it says, so goes Texas, so goes America. There's a reason why Robert Francis O'Rourke is out there ruminating about running for governor, because they still believe that they can recreate that effect that he had a couple of years ago in 2018. But don't laugh, because in 2018, when he ran,
Too close.
Republicans lost 12 state house seats. Republicans lost 2 state senate seats. Republicans lost 2 congressional districts. Republicans lost 56 judicial positions. And so they think that he is the key for them getting Texas back. This is where I need you. I need you to talk to your children and grandchildren. I need you to understand how important this is. I need you to make sure your kids are not being indoctrinated by a teacher or a professor or whomever. I need you to make sure that these legislative priorities are so important. I need you to explain what makes Texas so unique, what makes Texas so special. And I understand how special Texas is, because I was born and raised in Georgia, and I went to the University of Tennessee. And I know you all know that history. But there's a call to service. There's a call to action that is going out right now. And like was said earlier, Thomas Paine wrote these words in the pamphlet called The Crisis. He said, these are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis straight from their duties. But to those who will make a stand, they will deserve the love and admiration of men and women. Amen. This is your time to earn the love and admiration of men and women. See, life is not about what you accomplish and achieve in your little lifespan. I had Brigadier General Rick Lynch, who was our Assistant Division Commander in 4th Infantry Division. He once talked about life is all about how you live your dash. Okay? Remember your final resting spot, there's a start date, there's an end date. And in between, everything about your life is just a little line, a little dash. You must decide right now in this moment what your dash will say to all of those who will walk past your final resting spot years from now. We remember the 183 of the Alamo because we remember what their dash was all about. Remember those at San Jacinto because we remember what their dash was all about. What will yours say? Will it say that in this time of a crisis, that you were despaired, that you were depressed, that you gave up,
Nope.
that you said there was no hope? Or will it say that you found your courage, your character, your confidence, and your commitment, that you found your conviction to say that this is a different day and time. This is not politics as usual. Look at the people from Wyoming and the Republican Party there. They sent a message to Liz Cheney. The question is, will you send a message? Legislative session. It's just 140 days. And already about 3 weeks of it is gone. We haven't done anything about big tech. We haven't put out anything about our borders. We're not standing up and saying anything about these executive orders being sent down. You got to demand more of the people that are supposed to be your voice in Austin. And he's right. It's very Pavlovian, because until you show that you are serious about this, you're going to continue to get the exact same behavior. You've got to raise up a new generation of dedicated and committed Texans, constitutional conservatives that are not worried about how they line their pockets. They're not worried about their own interests. They're not worried about special interests. They're only worried about your interests, your liberty, and your freedom. This is your moment. What will you do in these next couple of years? Will define the history of Texas and therefore the history of the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. These great United States of America. God bless you all. What are your questions?
You want to ask a question about building a wall outside?
I'm a public chair of the precinct chair in Collin County. We had a private conversation with our House reps and our senators last week. We got 90 seconds to voice our concerns, and that was the end of the conversation. We've now called for a meeting with our reps in person, and they're denying that meeting, saying they don't have time to meet with us when they're home till the 9. What else should we do besides, we're trying to organize some in-person protests at their offices and things like that, but they just do not care.
Did y'all hear Kyle's question? The question basically centered around the fact that, last week the Texas State Legislature came into session on the 26th. I think the House was in session for 28 minutes and the Senate was in session for 32 minutes, and they gavelled out until the 9th of February. And what Kyle is saying, they are asking for a meeting with their state House member, their state senators, and they're telling them that they don't have time to do it. You can't accept that. Okay? I used to be in Congress. I mean, you don't tell people I don't have time for you. They're the ones that you work for. But guess what? And this is where you've got to make this decision yourselves. I can't tell you to do this. You got to decide if that's the level of representation that you want to have, or will you start to raise up a new generation? Will you go out and train some people up to be able to go out and go into that political arena? See, the problem is so often is we get upset with these representatives and we say that we're going to, run someone against you, but you don't train them up right. You don't prepare them right. You send them into the arena of politics butt freaking naked. I'm serious. Ain't got a shield, ain't got a spear, ain't got a sword, ain't got money, ain't got nothing. And you say, yay! They went in there and they tried. And then they fail. And then the same person gets to go back. So you have to decide if this is going to be what you will accept. But you got to continue to ask for the meetings, continue to talk to them, continue to tell them these are our legislative priorities, this is what we want you to pass, and get them on record. So that at some point in time you can say, you know what? You failed us. You get an F. And you know what? When I was a kid, I didn't want to bring an F home to mommy and daddy. You know what happens when you bring an F home to mommy and daddy? Or if they bring an F home to you, what are you going to do about it? Okay? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, without a doubt, I mean, is what the priorities are from the people of the Republican Party of Texas, and that's the legislative priorities. But you're right, property tax is one, border security is another. I think that, without a doubt, you have to start thinking about, the education issue as well. So I will do everything I can to be there to testify and prioritize where I need to be. You know, I don't know how open the Capitol will be. May have to do it by Zoom meetings, but I'm going to be there to testify. And remember that the meat doesn't really get started going until, I believe, like the middle of March, when the filing deadline is finally done. So yeah, I'll be there. That's what I'm supposed to do. Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on HB 1359?
Look, HB 1359, the people have the right to be able to vote on something, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not that will be brought to the floor for, you know, the opportunity for the people to vote on it. So again, if that's something you believe in, you should be talking to your state house members, state senators to encourage that to be brought to the floor. So at least there can be a vote on it. At least you can see where people stand on it. But I will tell you this, right now I want Texas to lead before secede, because we're important to this country. And if we abandon the United States of America, there is no United States of America. I'm just be very honest. Now, can Texas, you know, sustain itself and do it? We're on our own grid, 10th largest economy in the world, oil and gas, everything. Yeah. But I and some other people here took an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America, and I'm not ready to give up on the Constitution of the United States of America. I want to. And plus, I don't want to let those bastards believe that they can have America. Just I'm going to fight them tooth and nail. Okay? Yes, sir.
I know you're not a big advocate for political violence or anything like that, but whenever you disenfranchise 74 million people in an election, to where it looks like or appears that there is no hope, what does that look like to you?
We've got to fight smarter. Okay? Let me tell you, the thing is, the left is looking for any opportunity that we give them. And that's why I say we've got to fight using chess and not checkers. Okay? And so it's just the same on the battlefield. I don't ever want to do something that causes a mistake and gives the enemy the initiative over me. We had everything going our way for January the 6th. And because of a very small minority, I mean, I would say 0.05%, the narrative completely changed. And so now, instead of us being able to be on offense, once again, what are we doing? We're playing defense again. I hate playing defense. You don't win playing defense. And so somehow we have got to steal the narrative back. Without a doubt, I mean, with 40 executive orders in 1 week, they're giving it back to us. But we've got to be careful about that. You know, everybody, if you listen, and I wrote about it, how many people get the chairman's Monday message? Okay? Please pull that down. You know, I'm not really smart. I put a lot of intellectual, you know, ability into that. But last weekend I talked about unity or conformity. Joe Biden's message had nothing to do with unity. Joe Biden's message in that inaugural address had everything to do with conformity. What Joe Biden said is that if you don't agree with us, you're a white supremacist. You're a racist. Hey, even me. I'm not serious. Remember, he said, you ain't black and you don't vote for me, so I'm in the same boat with y'all. So don't screw this up. No, but it's the truth. I mean, and so now, if you're a Christian, white national Christians, how many people have read the Secular Democrats PAC plan? Read that. The Secular Democrats, they have a laid out agenda for how they're going to destroy Christians in the United States of America. It's all there. So I don't want to give them the opportunity to get the upper hand on us. And look, if you're expecting this to be a fair fight, it ain't. If you're expecting them to claim, you know, what happened last Sunday, or even the fact that that first weekend after the inauguration, they had Black Lives Matter and Antifa raising hell in Portland and Seattle. Didn't cover it, didn't talk anything about it. Okay? But people know it. So we have to be right 100% of the time. It sucks, but we've got to be right 100% of the time. That's just like when you fight jihadists and terrorists. You got to be right. Your intel has to be right 100% of the time. They only have to get it right one time, and a bunch of people die. Now, I hear what you're saying, so let me give you an answer to that. There's one Rubicon. You know what I mean by the Rubicon? Rubicon. There was one Rubicon if you cross. The history of the United States of America has shown this. When you go back to April the 19th of 1775, the Rubicon is any time that you are attempting to make Americans subjects by taking away their ability to defend themselves.
Yes, sir.
On April the 19th of 1775, the British had landed, and they were marching inland toward Concord, Massachusetts to destroy a weapons and armaments factory. The Sons of Liberty came out on Lexington Green, and they said no. They took on the greatest military power the world knew at the time. On October the 2nd of 1835, the Mexican cavalry showed up at a place called Gonzales, Texas. They had given the Texians a cannon to defend themselves against the Comanche raiders. They said to the Texians, "We want our cannon back." The history of liberty and independence in America is tied to the Second Amendment.
Right.
The Founding Fathers gave you all of those First Amendment rights. But if you read the writings of the Founding, those were passive rights. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, right to petition the government for redress of grievances, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, objective press. But the First Amendment means nothing if you don't have a mechanism to ensure that you can keep them. And the history of the world is that free people, citizens, became subjects because the first thing that tyrannical governments, totalitarian governments do is they disarm people. That's the Rubicon. Okay? Other than that, you got to keep your head. Okay? I want you to keep your head. I want you to fight smart. I want you to play chess, not checkers. Next question. Yes, sir.
With the decision within the Republican Party, there's like 10 senators now that are trying to make peace with the Democrats. Where do you see it going? And how do you see the refusal of the liberal press to say anything about our point of view? All about how great.
Sure. The first thing you need to understand, did everyone hear his question? Okay. The first thing you need to understand is the left does not believe in the three branches of government. They don't believe in the judiciary, executive, and the legislative. The left believes in the three branches of rule. The three branches of rule for the left is media, academia, and the courts. Okay? Now, shame on us for allowing them to control all the communications platforms out there. We got to do better than that. Someone should have been looking down the line, making sure they don't have that. And so we have got to continue to have the means by which we can communicate and the means by which we get the truth out. Every single one of you sitting here is a media source. Okay? I mean, you guys send out videos of, the cat doing backflips and the baby playing the piano and everything like that. But how many people here have ever sent out an email or something about the 8 legislative priorities of the Republican Party? I ain't trying to embarrass you, I'm just asking. And so that's what I need you to do. I need you to get the truth out there. And let me tell you something, and I love y'all, but stop chasing the conspiracy theories. Okay, we get so tied up, tangled up, messed up, and everything. I had my own pastor from my church over in Carrollton. The whole church staff calling me saying, "Is there martial law coming? I mean, do we need to stock up stuff?" I was like, "Pastor, my nephew works in the Pentagon. Ain't nothing coming down like that." Okay? But people get so tied up. You got people, I'm a prophet. and I'm prophesying this and that and the other, and everyone go chasing all of this mess. But they lose their focus on the state house, their state senate, legislative priorities, state legislature, all these things that are real important and key. How many people out here, when's the filing deadline for municipal elections? Everybody should have said that. Your city council, your school board, your county commission, your county clerk, those are so important. You know who controls elections? No, elections are controlled from the state and the county level. And that's why we can be strong and we can keep them from having HR1 if we can have the right people at the state and at the county level. School board, all this craziness that is going on out there. You know, on average, the most important elected position in the United States of America, I think, school board. The election that has the least amount of voter participation in the United States of America, school board. Go and do the research. Local level elections average anywhere from 8 to 10% voter turnout. 8 to 10% voter turnout. The mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, 8% turned out to vote for mayor of Dallas. Then you ask yourself, what happens? But yet we can go out and chasing all these conspiracy theories, calling me and asking me about, you know, some guy in Italy that said he was manipulating voting machines and everything like that, instead of knowing about what's happening right here in your backyard. I got to get you focused. And the other part of the question was the 10 senators that are sitting down with Joe Biden. The Republican Party has a perception and a branding issue. I said that at the winter meeting in January down at Amelia Island. Either we stand for something or else we're going to fall for everything. But I will tell you this. The left did not go out and create a new political party. The left went out and took over the Democrat Party. I served with Blue Dog Democrats, conservative Democrats. Sylvester Reyes from El Paso. You know who beat him? Robert Francis O'Rourke. Dan Bourne, Oklahoma. Heath Shula, former quarterback at the University of Tennessee, was from North Carolina. Mike McIntyre. All of those Blue Dog Democrats, those conservatives, gone. They slowly but quietly did it. You ever heard of the Justice Democrats? The Justice Democrats are the ones going out and picking these young little Bolsheviks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they're the ones running them all over the country. So we need to have something like that within our party to say that we don't want people that are trying to be a lesser version of the other side. I'm going to be very honest. We got to understand what our principles and values are. And you know something? Black community, Hispanic community, Asian community, they're conservative in nature. We don't talk to them about that. But when we do, look at what we did in the Rio Grande Valley this past election cycle. That's the biggest story coming out of Texas. How that deep blue Rio Grande Valley, some of it is purple, some of it is red now. All we got to do is show up. Pastor, how many pastors we got in here? Pastors, I'm challenging you to have church-to-church partnerships with Black and Hispanic churches.
Yes, sir.
Sunday is the most segregated day in the United States of America. We all say we're Christians and all worshiping the same God, but we're all separated. And that's how they divide and conquer us. So have church-to-church partnerships, because after church service, church-going people eat. And in between bites, they talk. And they break down barriers. A couple more questions. Yes, ma'am. Money is the mother's milk of politics. So if you start to cut off resources, you get folks' attention. And the other thing that you have to do is you do have to get outside your echo chamber. I have no problems. New York Times is going to interview me this Thursday. I love that. Because I just like beating them about the head and shoulders. Okay? Or the Atlantic or whoever. So I want you to go out there and find those platforms, find those venues, find the people that don't think and believe as you do. I always challenge people to go out and find 5 and get 3. Why did I say 3 out of 5? That's 60%. 60% in the political race is a landslide. And I guarantee you, if you go out and find 5 people that don't think and believe as you do, you can get 3. Especially if you think about those people out there in New Mexico.
Yeah, they're bad.
They're mad as you know what. Did y'all see the video of the black Keystone XL pipeline worker? It's out of work now. Who do you think he gonna vote for now coming up? But if we don't engage, if we don't talk to them beyond just that oil and gas issue, and talk about all the other religious freedom issues, school choice issues, life issues, that's what we got to do. Last question. Yes, sir.
Eric Roberts, White County. In your first question, you talked about educating.
Yeah.
Uneducated. Where we start. Where, you know, I put a lot of time because I do lawn care. So I've got my earbuds in. I'm always listening to philosophy and politics and stuff. So where do I start?
You mean educating others on issues?
No. Politics. Educated to be able to become a member of a city council, become a school board member.
Well, I mean, the question is, how do we become better educated, informed, so that you can raise up that next generation, city council, school board, whatever. Look at what Southlake has done. Southlake, Texas. They have formed Southlake Families PAC. And what they're doing is within that Southlake region, they are raising up candidates for city council and school board. This past election cycle, they had 3 open school board seats in Southlake, Carroll ISD. They didn't have anybody to run for them. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to form here in the Wise County Conservatives or in the Parker County Conservatives. I want you to find subcommittees. You should have a subcommittee on candidate recruitment and training. You should have a subcommittee on legislative priorities. You should have a subcommittee on, you name it. You got to do that within. And so when you come here to a meeting, your subcommittee should do a report. They should inform you, educate you, and activate you, prepare you to be able to go out. You should have debates. You can have mock debates and present both sides of an issue. Too often we go out there and we are not prepared on this ideological battlefield to go head to head with the other side. You know, and when they start to scream and yell and call your name, don't get discouraged. That means you're winning the debate.
Right. That's all they got left.
That's all they got left. When they call me an Uncle Tom, they call me, white man's porch monkey, house N-word, let's see, was it sellout, Oreo? I just laugh. Remember, we used to be in combat. We used to get shot at, right? You're going to call me a name and think I'm supposed to respond to that? So, but if you respond to it, you're rewarding them. And they will continue to call you a name because they know that you will self-censor. So again, that comes back to what we were talking about. We've got to fight smarter. We've got to frustrate them. And the best way to frustrate the left, just say no. Just don't do it. Joe Biden is signing executive orders. He doesn't even know what he's signing. He just signed his name. Because they just believe no state, nobody is going to stand up and say no. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you all. But this is a defining moment for us. People will talk about this moment in history. Our children and grandchildren will thank us for making the stand for them. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Tom Glass, who is the founder of Texas Constitutional Enforcement, is going to talk about some things that are very related to the stuff that we've opened with. And Tom, I'm going to give it to you since.
Okay, thank you.
Well, how would you like to be the speaker right after Alan West? Something is not working on my technology here, so we got to figure out that first.
There it is.
Is it okay? Good.
You got it.
Okay. I created a group several years ago called Texas Constitutional Enforcement. And I'm going to talk about the essential idea of constitutional enforcement in this presentation. Before I get started, I want to let you know we're on multiple social media platforms now. We're on Facebook, we're on Freedom Lake, we're on MeWe, Webkin, and Blabbook. And we may get on Gab soon. So, and we also have a website called Texas Constitutional Enforcement. You can look it up, txce.org. So I'd love to have you. So let me go ahead and get going. One of the nice things about what's been said so far is essentially this group, they've already set up what the situation is. We're in a situation where domestic enemies of the Constitution, probably in concert with foreign enemies of the Constitution, have stolen, captured the federal government, and their intent is to make us into slaves. That's where we are. Right. Everything Texans hold dear is at stake right now. That's what we're talking about. And we've got, here in Texas, we've got to figure out a way to work together to stop that tyranny and to preserve liberty for our posterity. That's why we're here. The whole idea of constitutional enforcement, I came with, Thomas Sowell said a wonderful thing. The Constitution cannot protect us unless we protect the Constitution. It's not a self-enforcing document. It takes real live people to put their lives on the line or to take risk to be able to stop the tyrants who try to enslave us. That's what constitutional enforcement, the essence of it is. So the end to what we're going to ask our state reps and our state senators and every elected official and every person who takes the oath in Texas to do is to honor their oaths to the Constitution. Everyone, the Constitution requires every one of them to swear that oath. It's codified in the Texas Constitution as to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And we all do it. Even attorneys, law enforcement, military, do different variants of that oath. And taking that oath doesn't mean that you swear to do whatever 5 out of 4 guys in the Supreme Court says. When you swear an oath, it's to the Constitution and the principles that are in there. It requires independent judgment about what that document means. So we've got to reject the notion that the federal judiciary is the final arbiter of constitutional meaning. The 10th Amendment, which Colonel West talked about a minute ago, says if they didn't delegate being the final arbiter of the Constitution, especially in the limits of the federal government, to the federal judiciary in the Constitution, that means it's reserved to Texas, and it's reserved to we the people. So the good news is, if we enforce the Constitution here in Texas, we can do it now, when the situation is dire. And we can do it without relying on other states to do so. The Lone Star State, all by its lonesome, can insist that the Constitution be upheld in Texas. And we can stop the feds from taking everything we hold dear. And we have a legislative vehicle. It's not the only way. In fact, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some alternatives of implementing constitutional enforcement. But we have a vehicle called the Texas Sovereignty Act, which I want to talk about here in a minute. It's HB 1215, introduced by Representative Cecil Bell out of Montgomery County. And I'll be talking more about what's in that act here in a minute. Okay, so what is the spirit of constitutional enforcement? In its essence, it is the spirit of resistance or defiance to tyranny. It is what Colonel West said we need to be doing. It's saying no to those who would take away our liberty.
Right.
Okay. Now, to do it well, there's two fundamental elements of that. One is, before you try to stop the feds from violating the Constitution, you need some formal declaration, probably with some reasoning about why what the federal government is doing is unconstitutional. And we need to do it as best we can through our elected representatives or the people who've sworn the oath, so that we're all on the same page. In the olden days, they used to call declaring an act of the federal government to be unconstitutional nullification. Since nobody knows what that word means, I decided that constitutional enforcement would be a better way of saying it, because there's another part to constitutional enforcement, and that's the teeth. And that is, you gotta enforcement. Any law, if it's not enforced, is useless, right? All right? Every day, our law enforcement go out and risk their lives to stop people from violating the law. And they have to do it knowing that there may be some pushback on it. It takes courage to enforce the law. And it takes courage to enforce the supreme law. But what I'm talking about is, if you want to stop the feds from violating our liberty and violating the Supreme Court in Texas, we're going to have to start applying the Texas Penal Code to federal agents who act under the color of unconstitutional federal acts. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and how we can do that as we go. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the power of enforcement. We had a question for Colonel West here a minute ago. We said, when is go time for actually doing what the guys at Gonzales did? And the thing is, I don't know about you, but I really don't want to go up to the federal government all by myself. I don't even want to do it with 30 of my good buddies. I don't think that's a winning proposition. If I'm going to go up against the most powerful army and the most powerful nation in the history of the earth, I would like to do it with a whole bunch of other people who are going along with me. I want constitutional enforcement is the idea of pitting the power and majesty and might of Texas against the power of the federal government. It's saying, to the feds, if you mess with one Texan, you're messing with all of Texas. By the way, did your mama tell you not to do that? Okay. So, one of the things I talked about was independent judgment of unconstitutional meaning. Who declares what's unconstitutional? Well, I think anybody who's sworn the oath is obligated under their oath to tell the people that they're representing or working for what they think the Constitution means in this situation and how the Constitution can be violated. So anybody who swears the oath needs to be thinking about what's unconstitutional and what's not, and have the courage to speak out about what that is. But the Texas Sovereignty Act codifies two paths to a formal declaration of unconstitutionality. This is where the part where I say we don't have to do it this way. There's a great guy by the name of Sheriff Richard Mack out there who talks about the Constitution. He started a group called the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He expects that every sheriff, every constable, every law enforcement person who has sworn an oath to the Constitution, when the feds come into their jurisdiction to try to violate the Constitution, he expects them to tell the feds, you're doing something that's wrong. You're violating the Constitution, and we're not going to have it in our county. Well, it takes courage for a sheriff to do that all by himself, without the support of his county commissioners, or without the support of his district attorney, or without the support of his judges. So one of the benefits of doing the Texas Sovereignty Act is it puts us all on the same page, so that we know that we have each other's back. in the political ecosystem that we have when we start going up against the feds. So we do two paths to do it, and it's an expedited process, we hope, with the Texas legislature, better than what we've been doing it one at a time. One is you do it to the Texas legislature with gubernatorial approval. The other is you do it through the Texas judiciary, not the federal judiciary, the Texas judiciary with a declaratory judgment. And so we're streamlining that process by creating a standing legislative committee, kind of like the Sunset Commission. It has both senators and state reps in it. And they meet even outside the crunch of the legislative session to identify federal acts and then communicate that to the legislature and the governor, so that the governor, if he needs to, can call a special session and we can get it done. Or we wait till the next legislative session, where the full legislature will join in with the committee, and then the governor will agree. And when you have the Texas legislature and the Texas governor telling the feds that what they're doing is wrong, that's a pretty powerful statement, don't you think? Okay, that's what the Sovereignty Act is about. All right, and then there's, of course, that's the nullification piece. And we'll talk about the teeth here in a minute. But what are federal acts? I use that term specifically. You know, there's a whole bunch of ways that tyrants can figure out how to take away our liberty. One is the legislation. They do regulations all the time. Of course, the latest, fad nowadays, executive orders. And then an order or a decision of the federal court. Anybody heard of Roe v. Wade? And then there's treaties. A lot of times they want to take a treaty, and because the Constitution says the treaties are supreme law, just like our statutes are, they want to claim that by signing a treaty with a foreign nation, we've amended the Constitution. Wrong. They have not. You don't get to sign a small arms committee or Paris Peace Accord and say that gives you the right to violate the United States Constitution. Okay. Who enforces the Constitution? Well, this is where we get to the teeth. In the Texas Sovereignty Act, it says once, first thing we do is we add into the act the ability for the Attorney General to independently prosecute federal agents who persist in trying to enforce acts that have been declared unconstitutional through the two processes we just said. Okay? I don't know if any of you guys heard about this, but there's this guy named George Soros. He has purchased the district attorneys of all our big counties. They're not, you cannot count on our district attorneys in our big counties at the moment to enforce the Constitution. They were put there so that they wouldn't. And we've got to give the Attorney General the ability to do that. And then we say use any part of the Texas Penal Code that you want. If the feds are making people disappear in the middle of the night with indefinite detention provisions, that's kidnapping, right, under Texas Penal Code. But Texas also has a wonderful act called the Official Oppression Act, and it says if you are a public servant and you knowingly violate the rights of a Texan, it's a crime. It's a Class A misdemeanor. Now, I don't know if you know this. I want to tell you a secret. Public servants, federal agents are public servants. I know that they don't think they are. They think that they are our masters, but they are. And the Texas Official Oppression Act applies today without any of the Texas Sovereignty Act. It applies to federal agents today. So any county that has a sheriff that's willing to do it, or a district attorney that's willing to back him up, they can apply the Official Oppression Act if the feds are violating the Constitution, even without the Texas Sovereignty Act. There's a guy, by the way, in this room. His name is Tommy Adway. He's a fantastic guy. He's an Army man too, Colonel West. And he wrote a book called We Defy, where he talks about a situation where, unfortunately, Texas has a governor that is not willing to realize that he's the head of a sovereign state and is sworn an oath to defend his people from the federal government. Does that sound familiar? Anyway, what they did is they did it at a county level, where by getting their district attorney, their sheriffs, their county commissioners court, and their judiciary